Hey there, my name is Kelly Dell with offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. In today's project, we are going to be making the Star Studded Pendant. This project piggybacks off of our summer bead along that we just finished up for the Stars and Stripes Forever Spear. For those of you who have done the spear, you will be very familiar with some of the first steps that we are going to do on this project. If you are new to the channel and you are just now diving in, well, make sure to go back to the channel and check out the playlist for the Stars and Stripes Forever Spear that we have been making. It was a fun project, and thanks to Judy Walker again for allowing me to show you guys how to make this spear. So let's go ahead and take a look at the materials we're going to need to make this Star Studded Pendant. Okay, guys, before we get started, I do need to explain something. When I wrote the pattern and I did my different samples, every single one of my samples turned out exactly the same with their bead counts. Now, you're going to see later on in the video, as I start to do the back of the color scheme of this specific color in the video, the back turned out different. I don't know if the stone was not as tall or, in height as my other stones were, or maybe one of the seed beads that I used is a smidge bigger and it made the difference. So in the video, as much as it pains me for you guys to see me make these monumental mistakes, it's actually really great as well, because from the mistake that happened, you were able to see how you can alternate and change up the back of the pattern in case you have these same exact issues I did. I tried to note those in the step-by-step pattern that I've got available on the website for this project, but you're also going to see that in real time here on the video. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first thing you need to figure out is which way you want your colorway to go. In your pattern, your color A is going to be the outer star outline, which is going to be where the blue is here on this one. Your color B is going to be your stripes color, where the red is, where you see that. And then the C color is going to be where the white is here, this inner outline. So then on this one, my A would be where this pink is. My B would be where the white is. And the C would be where the black is. So you can kind of see where those colors are going to go. And that's your first hard decision, is where those colors are going to go. But once you have that decision made, you're going to go ahead and lay them out onto your tray and thread your needle with 2 yards of thread. To start your project, you are going to thread on 60 total beads. So we are going to thread on 2A, 1B, 2A, 2C, 1B, and 2C. So those are going to be the colors that we are going to pick up in that order, and then we are going to do this 5 more times for a total of 60 total beads. Once you have all your beads on here, double check that you have the beads in the correct order. And so I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets. Now we are going to drop this down, and we are going to leave about a 3 to 4 inch tail down here at the end. And from the tail thread, we are going to pass through all these beads again. So once you've gone through all of your beads, you are going to continue to pass through the beads to exit a C right before a B. So my C is the dark brown. My B is the metallic color. So I could go all the way around, but I just have to make sure I exit a C right before a B bead. Then we're ready to start the round. So right where I'm coming out, I'm going to thread on 2 C's. I'm going to skip the B and pass through the next C. And I'll put my fingers there just to keep it tight. And they are going to lay like that. I'm going to thread on one A. I'm going to skip a C and pass through the next A. I'm going to thread on a C. I'm going to skip an A and pass through a B. The new beads that I'm adding need to stay to the outside of the work. I'm going to thread on a C. I'm going to skip an A, and I'm going to pass through an A. So it should look like something like this so far. I'm going to thread on an A. I'm going to skip a C and pass through a C. And I'm going to repeat this around the ring. So right here, I'll do 2 C's, then an A, a C, and an A. And I'm going to do that all the way around. Once you've gone all the way around, you should be exiting out of the first C that you started with before we even started to add our beads. So what we want to do is we want to pass through the 2 C beads here. We are going to treat them as one. So we're just going to step up by passing through both of those beads. We want to thread on an A and pass through the A sticking up. Thread on a B and pass through the C. Thread on a B, pass through the C. Thread on a B, pass through the C. And then we're going to thread on an A, and when we thread on that A, we are going to pass through both of those C beads. So we are going to work all the way around in this pattern. So it was an A, B, 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 A. We're going to do that all the way around. At the end of the round, your piece should hopefully look something like this. So once I add that last A bead, I pass through the 2 C beads there in the corner. Remember, I treat those as one bead. Now, there's no step up for this round. We're actually going to go to the center of our piece. So from where I'm coming out, I'm going to pass through 2 of my C beads here at a diagonal. We're going towards the center. I'm going to thread on 1 C and pass through an A. One A, pass through an A, and 1 C and pass through a C. Just like that. Now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pass up through the C's, down through the C's here, and then I'm going to do this all the way around. At the end of the round, you can really start to see that star shape come together. So I have put in the last C, and I have stitched to where I'm coming out of the 2C here in the corner. We're still going to be working on the center of the star. So from where I'm coming out, I'm going to take the needle, and I'm going to pass down through the C's kind of at a diagonal to get down here to the center. I'm going to thread on a C and pass through the A, a C, pass through the A. Now, this is where it will be helpful to you to we want to leave a little bit of space open here at our corners, because if we go through the corners like we did in our stars and spears, it's going to be super tight, and we still have to use these holes to do some outer rows. So here's what I like to do. I like to come up through and come out of this C, which is right next to my B in the corner. And then I will actually use that B as a bridge, and I will go through the B and then the C, and then pass down through the next couple of C beads there. So that way I'm not having to go all the way up here and fill these top two holes with a lot of thread. So that's just an easy thing that you can do to kind of use that little B bead as a bridge. So now we're just going to work around. We're going to thread on a C and go through an A, thread on a C and go through a C. And we are going to do that all the way around. At the end of the row, this is what you should have. We have one last row to do here for the center of our piece. You guessed it, we are going to stitch down, and we are going to pop one C in each of these little inside points to complete the inside of the piece. So I'm going to pass through to exit the center. I'm going to thread on one C, and then I'm going to pass through all the C's to come out the next point, and we're going to do that all the way around, so that we'll have a finished star shape on the inside. At the end of that round, you should now have a perfectly outlined star. I love this dark brown and this kind of mustardy yellow color, and that is going to look amazing when I get it attached there on my crystal. I cannot wait to see the finished thing. But what I want to do now is we want to exit right out between two corner C beads. So I'm separating these beads again. They're no longer into like sets of one. We're just going to separate them. So I'm coming out of that middle section. We're going to be working, it's going to feel like you're working backwards, because now we're going to work in this direction. So I'm going to thread on one A, and I'm going to pass through an A. So the new A is going to sit on top of the C that I was coming out of. I'm going to thread on one C and pass through the B. One C, pass through the B. One C, pass through the B. One C, pass through the A. So far, this is what we've got. And now I'm coming out of that A there, and I'm going to thread on one A. And I'm going to do a little bit of a funky turnaround. Okay, I'm going to thread on an A, and I'm going to work in the opposite direction, and I'm going to pass through the C bead here in the corner. So I'm coming out of the A, I've got an A, and I'm going to pass in the opposite direction the C bead here. So that when I do that, that new A is going to sit on top of the C bead. So you can see what that looks like. Now we need to get into position to come and do the next side. So to do that, I'm going to take the needle, and from the C that I'm coming out of here, I'm going to pass the needle, coming back in the other direction, through the B that's right under it. Okay, so I'm going through the B and then the C like this. And I'm going to pull that through. And now I'm going to pass through an A and a B going this direction. So that now I am in position and ready to start and do this row again. So it's an A and go through the A, C, 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 C. Then we pick up an A and we're going to work in the opposite direction. We're going to go through the C that's right there next to it. And you may have to just set it up on its side, just like that. Then we got to get into position, so we go through the B that's right under it. And then the C. Pull that through. And then we go through the A and the B, working in the other direction. Okay, we're going to do that all the way around. Once you complete the last side, and you have just put on that last A here in the corner, you don't have to worry about getting back over to the other side. The great thing is you can take your needle and from where you're coming out of the C, just go back through the A that you just added. I'll put my fingers there just to hold that in place. And there we go. So for the next side, we are going to thread on 2A and go through the next A. So we're coming out here. We're going to come right across to here. So our 2 A's that we're adding are going to sit a little whoppy. And that's what we want. You're going to have that little space there, and that is completely fine. So we're going to thread on a B and go through the next C. And we're going to do that 3 more times. So we're going to do B's. That's once, twice, 3 times. And then the last one, we're going to put on that B, and we're going to come through the A. So it looks just like this. So again, we thread on our 2A, go through the next A, and then we are going to work B's all the way across. We're going to do that all the way around. I'm fixing to add the last B bead on the row. So when I add that last B bead, I'm going to go through 2 A's. So I'm going to go through the one that I'm supposed to go through to finish the row. And then I'm going to go through the first of this set of 2 that I added in the corner. So after this row, this is what your piece should look like. Now, I mean, it would make a very cool pendant just like this if you didn't want the crystal and all of that. Or if you wanted to do earrings, that would make a fun earring like it is. But we are going to now thread on 1A, and we're going to go through 2 A's and 1 B. So I'm going to go through 2 A's, so 1, 2. So when you pull that, you want to pop that little bead in place like that. So 2 A's and 1 B. You want to be careful not to get that caught there. I'm going to thread on a C and C and pass through a B. And I'm going to do that 3 more times. So 1, 2, 3. Now, once I go through and I've added that last C bead, I'm going to pass through 2 of my A's. Thread on 1 A, and we're going to pass through 2 A's and 1 B. And again, pop that A into place so that you get a nice point. There we go. Okay, and then we are going to do that all the way around. At the end of the row, this is what your piece should look like. So we want to exit a C bead before a point. So if we don't want to have to go all the way to this C bead here, what we can do is from where we are coming out, we can turn around and pass through very carefully an A and a C. And then flip back like that. And then we will be coming out of a C before our point. When you do that step, you are officially done with the front of the piece. And now we're going to be working to the back of the piece. So I'm going to thread on, coming out of that bead, a B, 2A, and a B. I'm going to come all the way across over here, and I'm going to go through the next C that is sticking up. So when I pull that, it is going to go behind the point, and we're going to start to pull these sides kind of up like this. I'm going to thread on a B, pass through the C, and I'm going to do that twice more. Man, you gotta love spring allergies. Ugh. Now, I'm going to do that so that when you do that, you'll notice how it's starting to lay up like that, and that's exactly what you want it to do. So we're going to do this all the way around. So again, it was a B, 2C, and a B. And I'm going to come across to the C that's sticking up. Wait, no, did I say that right? A B, 2A, and a B. Sorry, I don't think I said that right. A B, 2A, and a B. I'm going to skip all the way over here to the next C that's sticking up. And I'm going to pass through that. And then it is B's all the way across. Just like that. And so I'm going to continue to do this around the back side. Once I've gone all the way around and I've put in my last B bead, I'm going to continue to pass through the next B, CC, and B, just like that. So I'm basically going through that group of 4 beads that I threaded on first so that I'm coming out of the B bead. And when you do that, you should be able to lay your Rivoli in place, and it should fit in place just like that. Okay, that's what we want. Now we want to thread on 1C and pass through the next B. And we're going to repeat that 3 more times. So 1, 2, and then the third stitch is going to be into that first B of the set of 4 beads that we had there in the corner. Now I'm going to pass through the next 2A. Come on. It's going to be a 2A and a B. There we go. So then I'm coming out of that second B of that set of 4. And now I'm going to repeat this around the ring. So I'm going to put in C's and then pass through. C's, pass through. When you complete the row, you pass through your last set of beads here. And then we want to exit the first C that we added in the round. Now we're going to be picking up B beads. So from where I'm at, I'm going to pick up a B and I'm going to pass through a C. And I'm going to repeat that twice more. So 1 and 2. And this time I'm going to thread on 3A and I'm going to pass through the C sticking up. And we are going to do that all the way around. Once you complete the round, you are going to exit the first B bead that you added. So we're back to C beads again. So I pick up a C and pass through a B. And I'm going to do that one more time. A C and go through a B. Now this time it's going to be 4A. And with those 4A, I'm going to jump across and I'm going to go through the B over here. And then I'm going to repeat this around the ring. So once you finish the round, we are going to exit the first C bead that we added. We're back to our B beads now. So we're going to thread on 1 B and pass through the C. So that's going to be almost like a last little point there. And then this time it is 5A. And we're going to jump across all the way over here. And we're going to do that all the way around. So at the end of this round, we want to exit out of the first B bead that we added. Now this is going to be worked a little bit differently. So we're going to pick up 1 B. I'm coming out of the B and I'm going to come back through that same B again so that it makes a little circle. And so what happens is the new B is going to sit right above, below, however you want to say it, the other B that we already have in place. We're going to go ahead and reinforce that once more. So we're going to go through the B we added and then back through our base B again. And then we are going to pass through a C, 5A, a C, and a B. And we're going to do this all the way around to add an extra little point bead over each of those B beads. When you complete the round, you should now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 B beads that are sticking out. I'm coming out of the B bead here. So I'm going to step up and I'm going to pass through the B bead that I just added. Now I'm going to work in the opposite direction. So I'm going to be going in this direction. Now this is where you're going to have to, I don't want to say play with the pattern, but you're going to have to play with the pattern. Every single sample that I have done has worked the exact same way, except for this sample right here. At this point, normally what we would do is we would add 6 of our A beads and it would be fine. But with this particular color scheme, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the matte beads or what. But when I add 6 beads here along the inside, they stick up really bad and they don't look good. And it makes it very odd. So you're going to put in, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 5. No, I'm going to put in 6 so I can show you what it looks like. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so the first set of 6, and I go through the B. Okay, so that one sits okay. It doesn't sit the greatest. But now when I put in the next set of 6 and go through, This set of 6 does not lay down at all. It sticks up, and that's not what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out, and on this sample, I am only going to add 5 of my A beads. And I'm going to see how that works. If you put on 6 beads and they lay down like these are here, you see how they laid down compared to the 6, then you're just going to put on 5 beads and go around. Otherwise, you are going to put on the 6 beads. So once you're around, this should be what it looks like. And you will see my beadwork is laid down against a stone. If you are doing 6 beads like I have here on this sample, when you go through the last B bead, you are going to pass through 4 of your A beads, and we're only going to be working with those middle sets of 2 of the 6. Because I have added 5, I am only going to come through 3 of those beads, because I will only be dealing with the middle bead here of my sets of 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread on 3B, and I'm going to pass through either the middle or the middle 2 of my next set of beads. And that's doing exactly like we need it to. So 3B and go through the middle or the middle 2, depending on what you have there. And you're going to do this around. Once you've gone all the way around, this is what you should have. And I have stepped up to come out of the middle B bead of that first set of 3 that I added. So now I'm going to thread on 3A, and I'm going to pass through the middle B of the next set of 3. And you are going to do this all the way around, just picking up 3A and going through the middle set, middle B there of the next set of 3. So I'm just going to keep working. Whoop. Here we go. All right, so with that set of 3, they should be laid down as well. They should not be sticking up like I have here on this one. And again, I don't know what it is about this specific color scheme that is changing the bead count. I don't know if one of the beads is just a smidge bigger or what, but those 3 beads are going to be too big. I mean, otherwise, you'll see here where I have my pink beads, they lay down exactly like we need them to there for those 3. So if you add those sets of 3 and they're too big, then I'm going to take this out, and I'm probably only going to drop down to 1 or 2 beads. Let me play around with it for just a second. Okay, so you'll see here that on this step, I ended up backing up and only putting it in 1 A bead in each of those little sections, because when I tried to put 2 beads in, it was still a little too big. So I'm coming out of one of the A beads now. So I'm going to pick up a B, and I'm going to go through the next A. And I'm going to do this all the way around. And then once you have that in, you can go through that inner ring of beads again. and you will be finished with the back side. But do not cut your thread off, because we still want to come out of any bead here in the point. But I wanted to go and take you to the pattern, and I want to show you the steps that we would do if you did not have to make bead alterations like we did on this color sample. Okay, so you'll see here I've got my step where we're adding our 6 A beads. And remember, this is the step that we had to drop down to 5 in the tutorial. Here, I've got add a note, because this is where we need to add the note about this. Okay, then here, we would pick up our 3B and pass through the middle 2 A beads of our set of 6. Remember, on the back side of my sample, I only went through the middle bead, not the middle 2. You step up through the 2 beads, and then we would normally do 3A and pass through the middle B bead there. And then come out of the middle B, and we would, or middle A, and then we'd put on our B's so that our back looked like that. So let me show you the difference here. That's the difference in the way the backs look on the piece. They look very similar, but just a little different. And it's the same thing here. You can see there, both these samples worked out exactly the same with the 6 beads. So it's either one of my beads was a little bit bigger, and it threw the pattern off just a little bit, or maybe it could even be the stone. The stone could be a smidge thinner or thicker or whatever. You never know. And I hate that the mistake happened, but I'm really glad it did, so that you can see how to fix it if you ran into the same mistake. So I'm going to pass through the beads to come out of one of my point beads. For the bail for this project, the first one that I did, I used my red beads here, and I used 1 size 8 seed bead, because I wanted it to go around a herringbone twist necklace with size 8 seed beads. On the pink one that I did it with the same count, which would have been my red beads, but here I used 2 of my B beads, so that way it's 1 less different bead to have to use. And it's the same size bail. It comes out exactly the same way. It's just we used a little bit of a different bead topper there. So when you make something, whatever it's going to be to go through it, it will go through the opening just like this to be able to go on to whatever it is you're going to make. If you do not know what you're going to make yet here with your bail, I would not complete this part yet. Because if you make the bail by the pattern, say you make a crawl necklace, then this could be too small. If you are going to put this on leather or a chain, then this is way too big. So you're almost going to have to wait and decide what you're going to put this on before you finish up the top. But I am going to show you how to do that. So I have on the thread 10A, 2B, and 10A. And again, I'm coming out of a point. So I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to pass back through the A again to make a circle. And you'll see what that is going to look like there. So I'm going to go ahead and reinforce this while I do it. So I'm not adding anything. I'm just going to take and pass through all of those beads again. And once I've gone through all of them, I'm going to take my needle and pass through that point bead there on the base. Now, I'm going to thread on 10A. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 3, 6, 9, 10. Okay, my thread is coming out to the left of that point. So I'm going to come up here to the top and I'm going to pass through those 2 B beads at the top from left to right. Now I'm going to thread on 10 more A beads. And I'm going to pass through that point bead from right to left, so that now I want to make sure that both those new loops that I just made stay to the front. And then I will reinforce those loops and then tie the thread off. Once you have that thread tied off, then you are set and ready to go. You can put it on any kind of necklace that you want, wear it casual, dress it up, whatever you want to do. But you can see how fun and different the color schemes look depending upon the placement of your A, B's, and C's. So guys, I hope you enjoyed learning how to make the star-studded pendant. I do have the step-by-step pattern available on my website at offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. I also have a limited number of kits available in the 3 color samples that you've seen in the video today. So head over to offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com, check those out, and thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye!